Welcome to the channel. The college football season is heating up, and I'm going to start with the ACC, ranking each team from 17 to 1. Now, a preface here, my rankings are based on where I think teams will finish, based on talent, schedule, and a whole myriad of things. So this isn't necessarily a power rating. This is where I think teams will finish record-wise at the end of the season. Let's get into it. Kicking things off at 17, I have the Stanford Cardinal. It was a rough stretch with 4 straight 3-9 seasons, but there might be a little bit of a glimmer of hope. They bring in Frank Reich as their interim coach. Andrew Luck's program vision can bring some energy. They bring in some transfers like CJ Williams from Wisconsin that adds some spark to the offense. But overall, this is a thin roster. This is a brutal schedule with 5 potential top 25 opponents. Depth is going to be a major issue after losing some starters. All I need to see, can they push past 3-4 wins? Can they steal some home games to have a proof of concept with a Boston College or a Pitt? I just need to see progress. It's a rebuild year, but a small step forward would be huge for the Cardinal, and I just need to see it this year. At 16, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. New coach Jake Dickert is shaking some things up after back-to-back 4-8 seasons. Look, they have some promising quarterback situation. They have more upside than last year's options. I love Dickert's high energy approach from some of the clips that I've seen of him, but they're uncertain at the quarterback spot. The roster returns less than 40% of its snaps. The transfer portal didn't fully fix the gaps. They got a little ways to go. This is not the Wake team of old. The defining factor, though, can Dickert's energy translate to wins? Can it get to like 5? Can they push for a bowl? You know, they have a manageable schedule. They avoid Clemson, Miami. And for a team that's in transition, maybe pull a couple of upsets, keep some fans hopeful, get some fans excited as you're building. I want to see that. Number 15 is the Cal Golden Bears. They showed flashes in their ACC debut. They faded late in 2024. And overall, another favorable schedule for a team near the bottom of the conference. They dodged Clemson and Miami. I think Devin Brown is promising. I think he gives Cal a shot at some early wins, but losing Fernando Mendoza leaves a bigger hole than I think people are actually talking about. Secondary also took a pretty big hit with Noel Williams' departure to the NFL, but can they win close games? They got, a very favorable schedule, a Duke, a North Carolina at home. They also got SMU at home. If they want to try to push for a bowl, push to get 5-6 wins, it's their schedule-wise. They got a chance to surprise, but I need to see, again, consistency, a proof of concept for a program that's going to have to start kind of rebuilding from the ground up. At 14, the Boston College Eagles. Bill O'Brien's first year delivered a bowl game, and 2025 maybe can build on that. They have an experienced secondary led by KP Price, who was BC's top tackler last year. He anchors the defense, but this is a young group on offense. They have some young running backs, a depleted D-line on the offensive end of things after losing Donovan Easy to the NFL. I think those are some big concerns. But the thing that's going to define this season is Grayson James' performance, or maybe it's Dylan Longeran from Bama. One of those two at quarterback. If they click, they could upset someone. They could be pesky. Maybe not upsetting a Clemson at home, but maybe an SMU at home and push for like a 6-7 win season. They'll be scrappy. They need to find balance. They're still near the bottom of the conference, though. At 13, the Virginia Cavaliers. Tony Elliott's team is definitely trending up with a big transfer haul. They bring in 31 guys, including Chandler Morris, you might have heard his name, from TCU, and they have a lighter schedule again that gives them a bit of a boost. Overall, though, I don't love the concept of relying heavily on transfers. I think it risks chemistry issues. The defense struggled against top teams last year. I think that's probably a trend that will continue for much of the season. But how fast can these new pieces gel? They have home games against Florida State, Virginia Tech. Those will decide if they can get to a bowl, and they're close. I love the proof of concept with Tony Elliott, but integration is going to be everything, and I need to see it this year. At number 12, I got Syracuse, and this might raise some eyebrows after a 10-3 season, but 2025 looks to be a tough one. They have a veteran defense. I like Davian Crouch and a solid secondary that can keep games close, but you lost Kyle McCord, the nation's passing leader. That's brutal. I think, Steve Angeli, Ricky Collins, they both face a pretty steep learning curve. Not fans of, honestly, either of them, and they have a killer schedule. They have road games at Clemson, SMU, Miami, and Notre Dame, plus they have to face Tennessee. For them, can they steal 2 of those 5? Can they steal 2? You know, Fran Brown's squad will fight, but 5 and 7 with this schedule and this group on offense feels a little realistic. Number 11 is Virginia Tech. Kyron Drones is back. I was very high on him last year, but had some turnover problems, some injury problems, and they have turnover pretty everywhere else that makes this a pretty pivotal year for them. He's a dual threat guy. He could be a star in the making for Brent Pry's team, but it's now or never. They have high roster turnover, new coordinators on both sides of the ball. Maybe that disrupts a little bit of chemistry, but can they find stability? Can they stay healthy? They have home games against Miami and Louisville that are big. And honestly, this could be a 7-8 win team. It could be within reach if Drones carries the load. And if he takes that step, this is a pesky squad that the top guys are not going to want to face. At 10, I got North Carolina. Now they're led by coaching legend Bill Belichick. He comes in, they bring in Gio Lopez from South Alabama, who I'm high on. He had 25 touchdowns in 2024. He gives UNC, I think, a dynamic edge. But around him, they have unproven skill players and a defense that's in rebuild mode. But I think Belichick is going to have kind of his way with this defense after they lost some key pieces. But how quickly can the team adapt to his system? What does he look like in the college game? They got Clemson in a weird sandwich spot where they have a bye, then Clemson, then another bye. So that could be a big gain for them. Their ceiling is high, but again, this is a transition year. Duke comes in at 9 after a strong 9-4 season under Manny Diaz, who came in his first year last year. They have a stout defense, as a Diaz group is going to have. They bring in Darian Mensah from Tulane, who ranked 21st in QBR, and he's going to keep Duke pretty competitive in a lot of games, I think. Skill positions lack some unproven playmakers, which I think caps their offense's overall potential. But if the offense can produce enough to match the defense, they got at Clemson and they have Georgia Tech in that weird sandwich bye spot that North Carolina also has. Those are both massive games. So the defense will keep them in games, but they're going to need to find at least a little bit of balance on the offensive end of things. At 8, NC State. They're looking to rebound after a 6-7 year, and I love CJ Bailey. I am just really wanting to see kind of a breakout year for him. Not saying that he's going to, fire things up, get onto the national stage a ton, but I'm optimistic for this offense. They have a manageable schedule that sets them up well for success, and I think they found something with CJ Bailey. The defense needs stabilizing. They bring in new defensive coordinator DJ Elliott after losing some key starters. I'm worried about the defense, their overall defensive performance. If they step up, they could upset a Miami or a Pitt and hit 8 wins. They've got potential. I want to see CJ Bailey break out this year, and I want to see this team deliver. Florida State at 7 is a bounce back candidate for sure after a brutal 2-10 season, and people might laugh at that a little bit, but they bring in some talent. They have the talent to compete at the top of this conference. Bringing guys like Thomas Castellanos at quarterback and a deep skill group gives them firepower that they lacked on offense last year. The defense is going to need to rebound after a rough 2024. But again, bringing in talent. Can they return to form? They start the year with Alabama. It'll tell us a lot. I do like Florida State in the points, that one. At Clemson, they got Miami at home. That will decide Mike Norvell's future. They're talented, but I need to see it. I need you to prove it with that talent. At 6, the Pitt Panthers. They started 7-0 last year, but crashed to 7-6. Sheesh, so what are we going to get this year? You bring back Eli Holstein at quarterback. You bring back Desmond Reed at running back. That's a great 1-2 punch right there. That in itself is going to be good enough on offense. You know the defense is going to be filthy, but volatility, 0-6 to end the season. You know things can unravel for them in a hurry if it's like last year. So consistency. Can they avoid another late season collapse? You got Notre Dame at Georgia Tech, Miami to end the year. You got the pieces, but let's see that final 3-game stretch, what it's going to do to them. Number 5 is Louisville after coming off of a 9-4 season. A dominant running game led by Isaac Brown, Duke Watson. I think one of the better 1-2 tandems in the country. Plus some key portal additions like Miller Moss from USC at quarterback fuels this offense. The defense trended downward last year, and they're replacing some key pieces. Let's see what we can do. But if they're going to compete, the defense has got to step up, or they're going to be in a lot of shootouts this year. They have matchups against Miami, SMU, and Clemson that are going to define their ceiling. They're a sleeper, but the defense has to step up. And honestly, if they want to go and compete for a title, of those 3, they got to win 2 of them. Sorry. At 4, the Miami Hurricanes went 10-3 last year, and they're loaded again. And some people might think 4 is a little bit low. They have a rock-solid offensive line and an improved defense under Corey Heatherman coming in at defensive coordinator. He's going to give Miami a little bit of balance. Curious of what Carson Beck's going to be able to do as he comes in, but the secondary, the receiving core, give me some major question marks after they lost some pretty key playmakers. What is going to define this season is Carson Beck and the receivers. If they gel, they could compete for the ACC title. I think this defense is good enough. I think they're close to elite. They have talent, but they need to finish strong. And Carson Beck, I think we're kind of downplaying him a little bit. I think he's going to have a great year. SMU lands at number 3 after an 11-3 breakout in their ACC debut. They made the college football playoff. Rhett Lashley's system and dual threat quarterback Kevin Jennings. He had over 3,600 total yards last year. They make SMU dangerous again. This is not going to be a fluke 1 year kind of thing for them. The thing that trips them up is a tough schedule. Road games at Clemson and Miami could trip them up. They got non-conference games versus Baylor, at TCU. And then truly the at Clemson, at Miami, at Louisville, that could keep them from a playoff berth, those 5 games. You truly have to go like a 3-2, 4-1 if you want to win and you want to go to the playoff. So some key matchups, if they split those games, they're in the ACC title hunt. They're legit contenders. The schedule's brutal, but they are talented as heck. Number 2, some people might be a little surprised whenever I say this. Georgia Tech is going to play in the ACC title game. Some might call this high, but hear me out. Haynes King at quarterback. He brings some experience. They have a strong running game with Jamal Haynes. Great 1-2 punch, maybe the best in the conference. They give Tech a potent offense. Now, the defense needs to improve after a shaky 2024, but this is a group that was injured last year. They didn't use, and everybody gets hurt. I know you could say that, especially against the pass. If they improve just a little bit against the pass, they're going to be dangerous. So if the defense progresses, they host Clemson, they host Duke, they host Georgia. The road games are manageable, like a Boston College and NC State awake. This is a group, the schedule sets up nicely. They have the talent. I think Georgia Tech's on the rise, and I'm buying the hype. And at number 1, the Clemson Tigers, in the class of the ACC. They have a dynamic offense led by Cade Klubnik. He threw for 3,600 yards and 36 touchdowns. There's a reason people are high on Clemson this year. They have the skill receivers to surround Cade. They have a developing defense under Tom Allen. Depth could be an issue if some injuries hit, but this is still just up front, such a big and talented group. It's hard to find any flaws. They're loaded. This is an old Clemson team with talent, plus using the portal in some key spots like Will Helt on the D-line, I think will be big for them. Can they keep developing toward a national title? That's what this season's about. It's not about an ACC title. They got games against Georgia Tech and Clemson that'll test them. They have LSU to begin the season and South Carolina to end the season. But I think Dabo's squad is back. They're ready to dominate. They're not going to go unbeaten, but there's a reason that folks like them, and I am all in on Clemson also. So there you have it, my 2025 ACC rankings. Who do you have as a dark horse to win the conference this year? Obviously, I got Georgia Tech, but who's yours? Let me know in the comments section. Love it if you'd like, subscribe, follow along for a college football content all season long. I'll see you next time.